Welcome back into the Big Trail Show. Evan Kamiko alongside Kevin McPherson for your Hog Hoops Report with Kevin McPherson. Kevin, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining the show. It's been a really big week, surprisingly, in the middle of July.
Mm.
Feels different than what we've had the last couple of years, where last year we didn't get any glimpse into Arkansas basketball practice. The year before with Muss, it's a lot of just videos that he's showing us that he's posting on his Twitter that we're sitting here and reacting to, but we actually got to go and see practice. If you haven't already, you talked with Courtney Mims on Full Court Press earlier this week, but we'll keep that conversation going right now, especially here on the Big Trail Show. Kevin, again, as we kind of sit back, it's a couple of days removed now. What's your biggest takeaway now that you've had a chance to really digest what we got to see on Wednesday?
I think it's really Calipari's attitude, comfort level, confidence in this team. It seems pretty obvious. And then in the post-practice presser, when he's talking about, how he has scheduled a tough schedule, but it's based on what he has. He really couldn't do that last year. I think it says a lot about the strength of where he sees the team as he looks at it. Even now, we're so far away. They've been doing June and I guess now July, limited practice stuff, but it's enough for him to go to leapfrog what he did in his first season, not only in terms of how he's scheduling, but in terms of what they're working on. We saw a bunch of team stuff, 4-on-4, 5-on-5 even. And he said the first year they really just did individual, individual development work. They're still doing some of that, but you saw a lot more of the team concept stuff as well. So they may be further along. He may want them to be further along. He may see this as a strength for him coming into this year two, this roster. And again, you just look around, it's not just what he says, but you look at the non-conference scheduling. The fact that they didn't go hard in the portal after the season ended, because they'd pretty much figured out retention was going to be the foundation for what they did for this next roster. Plus, they already had their five-star high school guys, premium players locked up in early November when that signing period happened. So everything tells us, backs up this idea that Calipari has a lot of belief in a team that he thinks maybe has taken another step from a team that was a razor, thin edge away from getting on to an Elite Eight last year. I think that's the biggest thing that stood out. Real quick, Trevor Brazil stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
If someone asked me and I didn't know anything about these players, just watching 1 hour of practice, who's Arkansas's best player? It's Trevor Brazil. I thought that was the case at both ends in that limited practice. Take it with a measure of salt, right? We didn't see a whole lot. They're in there every day, even though it's limited. We got to see 1 hour, so that was something that kind of really stood out to me. And then just the whole team, when you look at them athletically, size-wise, length, athleticism. I just said athletically, so athleticism is the same thing.
Yeah.
And some of the skill, I think part of what we can talk about shooting skill. I think maybe that's still a huge question mark. 3-point shooting, but some of the other skill, which is, sort of some of that spatial stuff, timing, how you interact in that two-man game, whether it's dribble handoff, pick and roll, pick and pop, shallow rolls, hard rolls, go screens, setting defenders up with crossovers, those kind of things. I think Arkansas has really got a loaded roster when you talk about slashers and guys that can play off that kind of action. And then the big men seem really comfortable in that. So I think there are some skills there. I think this is going to be the stronger rebounding team of the two. And you saw, to me, guys like Nick Pringle, and we mentioned Trevor Brazil, Malik Ewin, the wings, Billy Richmond III, even Carter Knox getting on that glass with physicality. I think there's a lot of things just collectively. I think this has got a team that's got a chance to repeat what last year's team did in terms of being a top 20 team defensively when you look at around Division One. The 3-point shooting, again, I think that's probably the biggest question mark. Really a lot of takeaways, Evan. Impressed with everybody, the newcomers. Again, those veteran wings coming back, they're only going to get better. Billy Richmond III, just his athleticism, and he seems to be stronger, really pops. It seems like his shot's a little better. I love some of the stuff that both Darius Acuff Jr. and Malik Thomas were doing, but let's not forget even Isaiah Sealy stood out offensively at times. We probably left some names out, but man, I was very impressed with what Calipari's put together. I understand why his confidence level is higher, and you in the things he says and in his sort of his tone and inflection when he's talking about this stuff, he's not lacking confidence in what this team may bring to the court now in year two.
Yeah, and look, there's a reason, Kevin, right? That we were even able to go to practice last year. Cal probably not that confident with the team considering how many offseason injuries they were dealing with of guys trying to get healthy, only practicing with 4 to 5 guys. So just the sheer fact that we were able to go to practice and see what the team looks like. And I love that you brought up Sealy and some of the size of these guys, because I don't think I realized how big Isaiah Sealy truly is. And then you see kind of the guys in the
Mm.
front court, like a Malik Ewin, like Nick Pringle. We knew Pringle was pretty big after seeing him a couple of times with South Carolina this last year. But again, you don't really realize it until you're in the gym with some of these guys of truly the size, because I think that was a downfall last year when you look at the big men of the Razorbacks, where Jonas Adu had the size. TB was a lot thinner. I think it's fair to say last year, maybe a little less muscular than he has been, putting in 10 or so pounds in muscle coming into this season. And Big
Yeah.
Z not physically imposing. So I think the size is really key, Kevin, of just seeing what these guys look like and seeing how big of a presence that they're going to have below the paint this year. That really, kind of they struggled against Texas Tech and St. John's and Kansas in the NCAA tournament and late in the year sometimes dealing with bigger guys in the front court.
Yeah, having an imposing presence, an enforcer like a Nick Pringle, being able to play with force more than just one guy. Though I think we saw Trevor Brazile not really backing down or shying away from contact. We saw him do better and better with it in those final 9 games last year. Now he's added. You mentioned the extra 10 pounds, and he did. You can see it, but it's translating into how he's moving around and playing. He doesn't seem hesitant, and that's that confidence comes several ways: belief in what your skill level, maybe your talent. But when you got the body to go in there and mix it up, that's also going to raise your confidence level and
Mhm.
make you and maybe make you quicker to engage in those game situations where a lot of times we'd see Brazil make a wild play and then 2 or 3 times just kind of not engaged, kind of stay out of the heavy traffic where all the bodies are banging, just kind of float
Off to the
around it. Now
side
he
out of the
seems like he's
limelight. Yeah.
locked in and yeah, he's ready to be you know, uh, to dish some of that out on his own. So I think, maybe the front line, because Arkansas outside, you said Big Z wasn't very physical last year. We know Jonas Adu was hurt a lot. We didn't see the best of Brazil till like we said, the final third or quarter of the season. Maybe now, if you stay healthy, but certainly looking at these bodies and looking at how they're willing to play a
Mhm.
physical brand, I think that says a lot about how maybe the front line can take a big step in certain parts of the game that this Arkansas could not game in and game out put on the court last year. I think this time around, this will be a different story, especially when we talk physically rebounding and playing with force around the basket and in the paint.
And that's something that's going to be really key when it comes to some of the end of the games. One thing that I want to pick your brain about is that Cal kind of mentioned where last year he didn't feel like he had, necessarily a bucket getter at the end of the game. That was really established for that team, where he said a couple of days ago where it's like every single one of these guys, I've got multiple of them, 5, 6, 7, who want to be the guy with the ball in their hands at the end of the
Mm.
game, or late in the game when the opposing team's going on a run. Who's got to get the bucket, kind of calm down everybody, calm down the opposing team's run. Curious, when you look at that practice, who do you think that could be? Because there's a couple names in my head, but I'm curious about you and what you think about who Cal's referring to as that bucket getter to slow down a long run.
Well, I think part of it is it's a team that's really good at getting downhill. I think of several guys. We didn't really see this in this particular practice, but I've seen enough of Darius Acuff Jr. to think he's a guy that could potentially be someone at the end of games, the ball's in his hands, and whether he's getting the bucket or setting somebody else up, more and more confidence in a Trevor in Brazil because of his confidence level and because he was knocking down shots at all 3 levels. It wasn't just, a certain thing he can do. We'll see about the progression of Malik Thomas. He intrigues me. He's definitely a bucket getter. Calipari even said it. How you close games, though, will you have the kind of trust in him to make the right decision and not take a tough shot that's tough, that's maybe very low percentage even for him. But just several guys. Carter Knox, I think, as a guy coming
Mhm.
back that's got all league potential. Maybe he's a guy because he's so good at big body and bully balling his way to the basket. And then drawing those free throw attempts. If you foul him, Another guy you might want the ball in his hands late. I think they got multiple guys and more than one way to do it. Is there one guy right now that just jumps off the page as he's got to have the ball in his hands at the end of games, no matter what? I'm not quite there yet, but I think there's multiple guys that can maybe be that answer. And maybe it's a different guy based on matchups, situations, who has the hot hand. That's the luxury of recruiting really good players at every position.
Again, I think it's way too early to kind of jump into all of that. Who is it going to be? Look, at the end of the day, it's what, July 13th. The season doesn't start
Yeah.
till October, November. So we've got a lot of time and a lot of time to
Mhm.
make those decisions and see what this team. But I'm curious too. We look at the players and who was kind of standing out, right? TB was able to talk after DJ Wagner. We talked about him.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about him, and I'm curious to dive him on a second. We heard from Pringle as well
Yeah.
as Malik Thomas. When it comes to the guard play, DJ Wagner, it seems like he's taking on more of a mentorship leadership role this season. Still will be heavily
Mhm.
involved in all of that. But what impressed you about DJ and Malik, kind of their back and forth, that you're able to hear kind of both of them talk about each other? DJ's excitement for the young guards and Malik's excitement to learn from a guy like DJ or Billy or Carter.
Well, DJ's the guy that is the steady hand. I mean, he's year 3 under Calipari, second season at Arkansas. He's the veteran in that what's otherwise a young lead guard slash two guard or combo guard as DJ will be in that group, that trio, because the other two are true freshmen. So I think it's very important. What we saw from him was just steady Eddie, driving to the basket, getting his going to the basket, maybe not knocking down threes, but we know he hit some big threes and he had some big second halves in Arkansas's best wins last year. And so maybe he wasn't shooting all that great up until a point. And then all of a sudden he hits two, maybe three triples in a second half, and he's putting 15 points in the. So he's that kind of guy that we've seen. And then defensively, I think that's probably the anchor in that backcourt. Those young guys are going to have to catch up to speed on communication, where to be with their footwork, all that stuff they'll work on. But DJ is a guy that I think can be a plus defender for Arkansas on that backcourt. He's strong at 6'3", 6'4". He had his moments last year defensively, and I think that's where he can be really lead these younger guys, and just in terms of not only what he says but how he demonstrates it by example. And so I think defensively, if you want to have a top 20 defense, your backcourt, that perimeter D's got to hold up. The young guys have a ways to go there, and I think DJ can help them there as much as anywhere.
Well, Kevin, we'll take a quick break. Then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about this and some summer league, because NBA. Welcome back into the Hogs Hoops Report with Kevin McPherson. That's Kevin McPherson. I'm Evan Kamiko. Kevin, let's talk about some summer league. It's going on. We'll get there in just a minute. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Let's talk about the bigs. Let's stick with practice. I'm really
Yeah.
curious. Two new guys. We kind of touched on them a little bit. Malik Ewin from Florida State, Nick Pringle from South Carolina. We heard from Nick after. He was really fun, a great personality, and somebody
Oh,
who I
yeah.
think is going to be a quick fan favorite. What are your initial reactions to these two guys kind of coming in and taking the reins from Big Z and Jonas Adu?
Well, it's one thing to see a guy on the court and that size, and I mentioned the physicality, and he's going to be a strong rebounder. I think imposing defensively. I think at both ends in the screen game, all kinds of stuff. Whether it's on defense in the screen game for Pringle, being able to switch out on the guards, offensively just setting solid picks and then rolling hard. And he's a lob threat. A lot of stuff there. And he talked about Calipari putting him in positions of being uncomfortable so that he gets better with some of his weaknesses, like maybe shooting a little further out than just put point blank putbacks. And then if you miss, go get it and tip it in. All that stuff's great. But what I liked about, other than what our eyes tell us, is what we heard when he was at the table at the press conference. Very mature. He's been through the wars of the SEC. It's not his first rodeo. He sounded like he honestly sounded like some of the professional voices you hear in interviews. Just talking about the business part, but not nervous about it. He seemed very engaging, back and forth with TB, playful stuff. It was all good fun based on the results of the head-to-head last year. Each team won a game in that. But what I really liked about him is just how locked in and focused he is on the mission and what the assignment is. He knows who he is. He's not going to be, Calipari may be getting him out of his comfort zone to some level to expand a little bit, but he knows what his games and strengths are. He's been through these wars again, and he talked like somebody that wasn't shy about any moment that's about to happen. And I think that's a plus. I think there's leadership qualities there. You look at TB, same thing. He's more engaged in the the interview stuff than he was even a year ago. You see it on the court. You see it again when you hear him speak. So I think those two, because we didn't get Malik Ewin in the post game in the post practice presser, both of those guys look like they're ready to be all about the business, and they could do it with a smile. So I was impressed with that because I think it tells me they're ready mentally in July, and that's that's a pretty strong statement. Malik Ewin, just a gifted offensive player. And we saw him knocking down threes. He's attempted 1 3-pointer in 44 college games with 2 stops. First at Ole Miss, and then last year at Florida State. One attempt didn't get last year. Started every game. So is he a guy that can actually add that to the bag this year and be someone that makes defenses pay for sagging off on him when he pops out or he rotates out off the movement? Because we know Trevor Brazile can be that guy, and we have question marks still about Arkansas's guards, which is typically where you think guards, wings, snipers. But bigs can, if they're capable, they can get it done. So Ewan may bring even more to the table because he's good handling the ball. He can bring it up the court after a defensive rebound. He can back defenders down way out on the wing and get to the basket. He's got a nice array of finishing shots around the basket, or even facing up 15 feet in. You add a 3-point shot to that, and it makes him an even bigger matchup nightmare. And now it's even harder to deal with Arkansas's guard play, making reads on that downhill off those screens and dribble handoffs because the ball can spray out to competent guys. So Malik Ewin, to me, there's a lot more question marks defensively from him about him as opposed to what I see with Brazile and Nick Pringle right now defensively. However, he's also a strong rebounder. And I think, again, this front line, that's the biggest difference we're going to see on day one, even if they work through some kinks with other things, is these guys are just going to get on the glass, and that's going to be noticeable, I think, from day one.
Curious, kind of before we take our final break and talk some Jordan Walsh, is there any kind of overarching thing from the press conference that really caught your eye that you really listened to? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit already about the schedule and Cal wanting to schedule to his team and not, for his team, a big thing. But anything else really catch your eye and was really interesting to hear what the players had to say, maybe, or Cal himself?
I'm going to go back to Calipari, and he said a lot of things. He talked about a lot of his preferences, things he'd like to see different in college basketball. But he said one more thing that really stood out to me. And he said, what we're doing here, and he kind of talked about how last year it was so new and he didn't even know the campus and they were working late hours. He was taking a back way in from the graduate where he was staying. But he said something about this year or where things are now. And he goes, look, this is going to be just like it was at the other stops. UMass, Memphis, and Kentucky. Same thing happened here. Nothing's changing. He took each one of those teams to Final Fours. He took 2 of those teams to a national title, at least one national title game, and he took Kentucky multiple times, and he won a national title. And I think what he's saying is, yeah, I've been here long enough now to see that we're just going to keep on keeping on, and he delivers at that level. So it doesn't come full circle to being him saying, I predict we're going to a Final Four, but he's effectively saying, we're going to, what I've done in other places, we're able to do here. And I think he had that confidence taking the job. He said he's just moving the headquarters. But again, I don't think you say things, I don't think you say something quite like that unless you really believe it. And the fact that he still seemed motivated in year one with that team, and you saw the postseason. That was probably the biggest question mark based on the previous 5 years of those shortcomings at Kentucky. After really good regular seasons for the most part, checking up short in postseason. I think making that step, to me, probably stood out as much as anything. Others may have other things that stood out. I lean on that as in terms of Calipari. Still got some swagger, and he's got it here at Arkansas and Fayetteville. That goes a long way with me in terms of what I think he can do.
It's the idea, right, of that he keeps going back to where, last year we could have dropped the rope and we didn't. We've heard that kind of metaphor over and over and over and over again, but that's the reality of it, right? Like that team the Sweet 16 was the expectation before the year. They met that expectation in year one with him, first time into the second weekend since I believe 2019 for Coach Cal. And now it's year 2. You're looking to make another step forward, and that's how you do it. But I just, people want to, Kentucky fans want to say this, beat a dead horse, all of that, but it's the reality where he's confident in this team. He believes they can get to that Final Four this year, and it's really exciting with a lot of the pieces that
Mhm.
he brought in. Kevin, anything else we missed about Coach Cal's press conference before we go to another break and then talk a little summer league?
I don't think so. I think that summed it up for me.
Then I love that. Nice and easy answer. We'll take one last break here on the Hog Hoops Report with Kevin McPherson. We'll be right back and talk some summer league. Stick around. Let's close shop here on another Hogs Hoops Report with Kevin McPherson. That's Kevin. I'm Evan Kamiko. Kevin, let's talk some summer league. A couple updates from around the association. I know Adu Thero not going to be participating with the Lakers because of his injury. They want to make sure he's healthy. Nelly Davis didn't play in the Kings game where he's with the Magic. They played the Kings. He did not play. It was a coach's decision. But Jordan Walsh looked really good. Dropped 17 points a couple of nights ago. What impressed you about him trying to get into that Boston rotation and make a name for himself with the Celtics?
Well, going into year three, and so he was a guy they drafted early, got it early in the second round, and so these are opportunities. And he led; he was a game high 17 points. He was efficient. I think he was 3 of 6 from three. Had 3 rebounds, a couple of assists. His defense, he's projected as a 3-and-D guy, and Boston needs to see that three part of it start to come around. And so this is summer league; it's not the same as the NBA, but if you're going to put him on this kind of stage, then he needs to show up and show out. He plays again today. This was just the first game, his opener, but he did a really good job. He helped Boston get a win. And I thought he was a positive in both halves. And so I don't think he was, had a good stretch and then it fell off considerably. No, he played well when he was on the court. He played 30 plus minutes in that win. Just to see him knock down threes off the ball movement, because if you're going to be a 3-and-D wing, you're going to maybe be the fourth or fifth option sometimes on offense. Do your job on the defensive end. I thought he did that. But then when you're open to that ball moves, you got to hit enough of those so that they don't keep you down in the minor leagues forever, which is the G League, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, he may still see some G League run this year, but I think we'll see him with more second unit rotation opportunities than we've seen so far. And it's a progression, right? He had some of those last year at Boston during the regular season, believe it or not. The year before, not really. He appeared in a handful of games. So year three, this is time for him to rise up a little bit, and I think he showed it at this level. Whatever summer league is, it doesn't always telegraph exactly what's going to happen. It's a different animal. A lot of young guys, a lot of career G League guys, that kind of thing. But Jordan Walsh, so far, so good.
Anything else from the summer league before we wrap up?
Mason Jones, man, going into year 6, he's with the Sacramento Kings. Been a two-way guy there. Was the G League Finals MVP this past season. So you had Shea Gilgeous-Alexander getting the NBA Finals MVP. You had ProHog Mason Jones getting that. He's back in the summer league with the Kings. Hit a 15-point game, an opening night win in this G League event, Las Vegas. And then I think he helped Sacramento win another game yesterday to start the game, score a lot, but the team with 6 assists. So Mason Jones continues. If every opportunity he gets, he proves himself. He hasn't gotten a lot of opportunities in NBA games. He's played in some, but no team has really relinquished reins to him in a 2 deep or top 10 yet. He's got the talent and the ability to be. So let's see where this goes. He's entering year 7. He's performing in the summer league as well. Stanley Moody as well with the Bucks made his debut. I think it was yesterday. Eric Patrick Musman, Daniel Musman were courtside. I got a nice picture of the three of them with Stanley before or after the game, and I tweeted that out. That's who Amude played for at Arkansas. But he's with the Milwaukee Bucks. He's also playing in this summer league.
Yeah, exactly. Hoping for all the best for all the Pro Hogs and making a statement. But that is going to do it for the Hogs Hoops Report. For Kevin McPherson, I'm Evan Kamiko. More Pig Trail Show coming up after the break.